All right, we're going to do two videos today because I can, and I actually have the time to do so. So, without any further ado, mystery number 6, the conservatism and skepticism paradox. Now, this is something that I have found engaging with leftists and people even in the center when they engage conservatives online. And this is something that frustrates both parties to no end, and it needs to be explained. To the modern centrist and leftward, a true conservative seems impervious to reason. Yet, to the chagrin of the centrist and leftward, they are surprised to find that their positions are rebuffed by the sound logic of a true conservative. True conservatism is not illogical. It makes sense. It follows through. This is because true conservatives are in fact skeptical of nearly everything around them, with exception to the forces of family and food. This is staggering to their adversaries because what they had initially dismissed as a weak matter of faith or just a blind prejudice, a true conservative's reliance upon reality is a greater boon to their reasoning than their opponents had expected. However, this confusion is not unwarranted. Many true conservatives obey and honor the forces of family and food through a religious institution, because the principles of said institution follow closely with honoring these forces. And because these principles of religious institutions are so closely following with what we could call traditional conservative values, true conservatives will never see associations between religious institutions and their principles as a contradiction to reason. For good, because, by and large, they help them get by. They make sense. They are a force for good in their lives and produce good results. And they won't ever see the need to find this association to be contradictory until it might be warranted to do so when those principles are betrayed by the institution or subverted by the institution. In short, a conservative's association with religion and their faith and the principles that they're taught through that religious institution is not going to be seen as unreasonable or as a contradiction to reason if the results of living these principles results in a good life. You're never going to get that through or make that seem as if it's unreasonable to a true conservative. That said, nearly nothing else in a true conservative's view is beyond question. And I'm being completely sincere about this. Outside of the forces of family and food, and following the principles that promote and honor these forces, everything else is put to great scrutiny. Everything, scientific studies, statistics, graphs, charts, and claims from government or authority figures are always weighed and measured against the forces of family and food. Any claims or theories that fall outside of the norm of these forces is heavily criticized, if not outright dismissed. This level of healthy skepticism is disarming to the left-leaning ideological bigot, mainly due to the fact that they often falsely conflate optimization, which conservatives were responsible for adopting and making part of their daily lives, with progress, thinking that the true conservative is behind the times or simply misinformed. This is, of course, false, and I'm going to take a moment here because one of my good friends has read this entire thing, and he laughed when he got to this point because he's like, behind the times? The times never change. And I just have to throw that in there because it was, remarkably quaint and true. In terms of human interaction and the way that societies tend to cycle through, the times haven't changed. They haven't changed at all. In fact, the kind of social upheavals that we're experiencing with sex, gender, marriage, the family, are the same ridiculous notions and are just as damaging to us today as if in ancient times where the Greeks and Romans were in power, some crazy asshat philosopher woke up and said, hey, you can sow your grains during the harvest season instead of sowing season, and it should be exactly the same. Our harvest and our farming cycle is just a social construct. And it would have the same exact damaging effects that you would expect. And woe unto the fool who would actually preach and practice this shit. A true conservative is making very informed and forward-thinking judgments when they consider what to be skeptical with and what not to be. They are always skeptical of things that rub against the forces of family and food. And these judgments are based on the ancient and ever-present forces that have been acting upon mankind and nature since recorded history. We true conservatives, are rightly skeptical of any and all claims that these forces have somehow been altered. A true conservative is therefore always a skeptic to the new and foolish notions of a generation eager to repeat the mistakes of a previous civilization. And that is why even the centrists and leftward are consistently baffled by arguing and being rebuffed by true conservatives.